Chapter 316, Hurdles. The host finally announced the final guest and the audience sighed in disappointment. Everyone wanted to go up onto the stage, but unfortunately, the spots would only go to the few lucky ones. Chen Guo was one such person who sighed in disappointment. As soon as the numbers started rolling, her eyes would grow wide. When Zhou Zikai said the final seat number himself, she listened intently. But among the 10,000 spectators there, only 4 would be chosen. With a 0.04% chance, Chen Guo was unfortunately not chosen. Though for these types of lottery events, not being chosen wouldn't make her too depressed. After a short moment of lament, Chen Guo immediately brought out her newly bought binoculars to look. "Ah!" Chen Guo suddenly shouted in astonishment. "What is it?" Yi Shu and Tang Ru asked. Su Muqing also brought binoculars. Chen Guo was very excited at the thought of doing the same thing as her idol. "Really? Let me look," Yi Shu hastily said. "Look," Chen Guo gave the binoculars to Yi Shu, "over there." Yi Shu took it and looked through them towards the pro players' seats and quickly found Su Muqing. Sure enough, she really had brought binoculars. Right now, they were raised up, searching around. Right, Chen Guo continued to chatter in Yishu's ears. Yishu saw Su Muqing's binoculars turn and turn, until finally it turned towards his direction, where it quickly stopped. They were a bit far, though they could at least see each other. Yishu stared through them some more, but Chen Guo already wanted the binoculars back. Yishu handed them back to her. Chen Guo raised them up and immediately cried out, "Ah!" Chen Guo quickly put down the binoculars. Her expression was somewhat dumbstruck. "She seems to be looking towards us, don't you think?" "Seems like it," Yishu said. Chen Guo quickly raised the binoculars again and continued to say in surprise, "Ah, she seems to be waving in this direction." "Who do you think she's saying hi to?" Chen Guo stood up and looked around, but didn't notice the person next to her waving back. After looking around in a circle, she obviously didn't find anything. When she sat back down and looked through her binoculars again, Su Muqing had already stopped looking in their direction. On stage, the 4 participating pros had already gotten up. Zhou Zikai, of course, was one of them. In this event, 3 pros could sign up on their own and the 4th one was usually chosen from the All-Stars list, in order to raise the stakes. Anyone on the All-Stars list was naturally more popular than any normal pro. These types of players had a status similar to a box office celebrity. The popular pros' task was to pick out 4 lucky guests and then participate in the event along with everyone else. In the first event, the hurdles, the popular pro was Zhou Zikai. When he stood alongside the normal audience members and the other participating pros, he already stood out. He seemed somewhat uneasy, but it wasn't as obvious as the chosen guest's nervousness was. The other 3 pros, who were not as popular, looked even more calm than the god. The host announced the 8 participants. He asked the 4 chosen audience members their names and then their glory IDs and classes. He then asked them for their thoughts. 2 of the 4 expressed their excitement. Another one of them could only laugh and smile nervously. He couldn't get a clear word out. The other was a female, who was staring at Zhou Zikai with sparkling eyes. Though to her disappointment, Zhou Zikai never turned his head to look at her. His head was lowered towards his feet the entire time. After asking the chosen audience members their thoughts, the host turned to the pros, who were skilled at interviews. Finally, the mic was handed to Zhou Zikai. The host was already sweating. "Zikai," the host called. Zhou Zikai lifted his head to look at him. "What do you think? Do you have any confidence in winning?" the host asked. Zhou Zikai hesitated. "Good," he said. "You can do it." The host didn't even attempt to figure out what he meant by good and hastily ended the god's interview. He immediately announced that the first event would begin soon. This match was purely for fun, so no one bothered with being fair. The pros would use their own accounts, while the chosen audience members would use their own, as well. Only if they didn't bring their account cards would the host provide them with one. When they advertised the event, they had reminded the audience members to bring their account cards because there was a chance they could play with the pros on stage, so these 4 chosen audience members used their own accounts. The 8 players got up onto the match platforms and their 8 characters appeared on stage. The most eye-catching character was obviously Joe Zekai's Cloud Piercer. His character was covered in gray and wore a black cap. Its posture was similar to Joe Zekai. His character was looking down and standing silently behind the starting line. Beside him was a lucky audience member's character. The 7 characters were lined up in this way. 4 of the characters had their heads turned. These were clearly because the 4 normal players were admiring the great gunner's elegance. The 3 pros were also rare existences to normal players, but compared with the god, they were immediately drowned out. Ready, set, a very loud voice resounded throughout the entire stadium. Bang, a gunshot. Bang, 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 bang. After the starting gunshot, more gunshots closely followed. The audience were surprised and thought that something had happened to the starting pistol. But soon after, they saw Joe Zekai flying backwards. The repeated gunshots weren't from the starting pistol, but Joe Zekai's silver weapon, Wildfire revolver. Joe Zekai was undoubtedly using aerial fire. Aerial fire required high-frequency shooting. Aerial cannon could push a character very far, but aerial fire required repeated shooting to keep the character floating. In terms of difficulty, aerial fire was harder to do than an aerial cannon. But for Joe Zekai, the current god among gunners, aerial fire was beyond easy to use. As soon as the starting pistol went off, his character quickly turned around and flew backwards, instantly pulling ahead of the other 7 players. When using aerial fire, the character touched the ground much more frequently than when using aerial cannon. But under Joe Zekai's quick fingers, Cloud Piercer slid along the ground like a dragonfly. He quickly arrived at the first hurdle. Without turning around, he simply angled himself downwards and then gently jumped. Cloud Piercer gracefully leapt over the hurdle without overjumping it by even the slightest inch. The electronic screens immediately replayed this part. The applause from the audience was very warm. This was Samsara's stadium, which meant it was also Joe Zekai's home grounds. Here, he was absolutely the most welcome player there. Among the other 7 players, one of the pros was a witch. He hopped onto his broom and flew low, quickly winning a small lead. When he met a hurdle, he would make a slight adjustment and his character would gently glide across the hurdle. The absolute majority of pros were extremely adept at these sorts of basic skills. It was impossible to tell who was better with just one move. Apart from these 2 classes with their more unique movement methods, the other 6 were more ordinary and were running along the ground. But the other 2 pros quickly pulled ahead of the 4 audience members. Whether it was from their equipment or movement speed, they had a better grasp of the tempo. The pros were obviously much more skilled than normal players. This type of difference was obvious at a glance. If they kept on running like this according to the normal rules, then this match would be quite boring. But in a match with no rules, who would abide by them? Everyone awaited for that moment. The audience didn't have to wait long. One of the pro players broke the silence. His character was a battle mage. Even though he didn't have any special movement abilities, he had an ability that could increase his movement speed. When he passed by the first hurdle, he threw out a dragon tooth at the hurdle. The hurdle broke and a neutral chaser appeared behind him. If he could attack with the chaser, then he would be able to obtain the movement speed buff. Chasers couldn't be used against the hurdles. They could only target other people. The players near him were both audience members. Even though there were no rules, the pro felt that bullying the normal players would be somewhat embarrassing to do, so he sent his neutral chaser towards the other nearby pro. But how could a pro be hit so easily? That pro was a berserker, who directly jumped to a different lane to avoid the attack. Correct, he switched lanes. In a match with no rules, there was nothing wrong with switching lanes. That battle mage didn't hesitate and immediately chased after him. He was clearly determined to get his chaser buff. The pros were clearly more on top of things. The 4 audience members were still running normally, while these 2 had already started fighting. The current second place pro, the witch, began to move too. Seeing that Joe Zekai's Cloud Piercer didn't seem to be slowing down, he wanted to stop him. As a result, he began casting magic missiles towards Cloud Piercer. Cloud Piercer was flying backwards, so he could clearly see them coming. He immediately began to adjust his flying angle. His character continued to adjust his flying direction and he was no longer flying in a straight line. His quick changes were like a butterfly passing through flowers. His beautiful movements caught the audience's attentions and the applause once again came. The witch saw that his magic missiles weren't working, so he chanted again. His character threw out a sparkling light, which transformed into a ray of light that shot towards Cloudpiercer. Witch skill, Star Ray. Chapter 317, the second event. Star Ray moved quickly and was very difficult to dodge. However, the more difficult the challenge, the greater the skill required to overcome it. For someone at the top of the pro scene, avoiding the Star Ray couldn't be said as extremely hard. This was especially so in this sort of scenario where there wasn't any strategy involved to ensure Star Ray would connect. However, this wasn't a serious competition. It was only a show match, so the players wouldn't think too hard. If they had a skill to use, just use it. It would be a battle of luck. This Star Ray was thrown out with this type of carefree attitude. As a result, Joe Sakai wouldn't be hit by it. The instant the Star Ray flashed out, his Cloudpiercer lightly jumped. While dodging the Star Ray, he also leapt over a hurdle. The Star Ray directly hit the hurdle and the powerful magic shattered the hurdle. Wood pieces flew through the air. At this moment, no one was able to hear the quiet caw sound amidst this. If they heard it, then the experienced players would realize that this was the sound of the bullet being loaded. Furthermore, this wasn't a normal attack, but a skill. As the wood pieces fell, the witch hastily flew over, when he saw an ice-cold black muzzle pointed at him. Bang! The gunshot was extremely loud. The sparks that flew out were like a small explosion. The gunpowder that flew out raised a dust cloud around Cloudpiercer. It could be seen just how strong the skill was based off of its visual effects. This was a sharpshooter's most powerful skill, Thunder Snipe. Correct, right now Cloudpiercer was holding a giant sniper rifle. When he used the skill, his character would create an item that would fit the skill for the game's visual effects. Whether it was from the ground or from the air, no one knew where the item came from. With this distance, wanting to dodge the Thunder Snipe after seeing the gunfire couldn't be called difficult, but rather impossible. The witch was hit in the head by the skill and blood immediately splattered out. Those who were hit in the head by Thunder Snipe would trigger a hidden effect that would cause the bullet to do twice its normal damage. However, the witch's head exploding with one shot was only a visual effect. He would receive a large amount of damage, but he wouldn't immediately die. However, his rush forward had been interrupted. When the bullet hit, his head flew backwards like a train, carrying his body along with it. In that instant, he went from being second place to last place. Cheers. More cheers. In reality, most of the audience didn't realize that Joe Sakai's Thunder Snipe had used the hurdle-shattering sound as a cover, but the attack's power, as well as its quickness, was enough to bring about the audience's cheers. Cloudpiercer continued with his aerial fire. Behind him were the Battle Mage and Berserker, who were fighting as they ran forward. These two classes lacked long-range abilities. The two were fighting with each other as well and had no way of stopping Cloudpiercer. It was somewhat boring to see the match being decided so quickly. Though for this type of fun event, winning or losing wasn't really the main attraction. At this moment, Cloudpiercer's beautiful and steady aerial fire was the biggest watching point, while the two pro players fighting with each other were the second watching point. The four audience members who had entered the show mode and their chaotic fighting were the third watching point. As for the witch who was blasted away, after climbing back up, his hasty broom riding to try and catch up became the fourth watching point. The commentators and the screens wouldn't recap the more technical areas and would display the more fun parts instead. For this match, the purpose wasn't to praise the winners, but to try and get everyone to smile and laugh. From the looks of it, the first match could still be considered successful. With the winner already decided, the remaining contestants became more relaxed and simply took the match as just a fun match. In the beginning, the pros were only fighting with each other. They felt too embarrassed to bully the audience members. But as the audience members began to attack the pros, everyone gradually began to a huge fight, which was quite funny to watch. Along with the sound of a whistle, Joe Sakai reached the end destination. And the group behind him? There were only 4 players left. Of the 4 audience members, 3 had already died along the way. The remaining audience member was the female player. The 3 pros were clearly being somewhat nicer to her. In truth, if the pros were seriously fighting, then the pros would have gotten rid of the audience members long ago and there wouldn't have been a huge fight. However, since they were simple doing it for fun, the fight turned out like so. When the 4 remaining players were about to reach the final destination, the battle mage and the berserker seemed to have suddenly reached an agreement and they began bullying the witch. Just before they hit the end goal, they killed him off. After that, the two began fighting again, intentionally giving the female audience member an opportunity. The girl swept past the finish line as the second-place contestant and the other 2 also reached there shortly after. When the match ended, the electronic screen showed everyone's record and placing. After that, they even put out the stats for things like who did the most damage for everyone to see. The commentators talked about the placings jokingly and the stadium's atmosphere lightened up even more. The 8 players returned to the center of the stage. The second-place female player received the champion Jo Zekai's hug under the host's directions. With her face red, she scurried off stage, forgetting to pick up her prize. The other 3 pros didn't care at all about the match and were laughing along with the host. "Zekai, you won the match. How are you feeling right now?" the host still asked the god. Jo Zekai replied as if he were extremely prepared and immediately said, "I feel very happy." He only said 4 words and then smiled at the host. The host didn't attempt to go deeper. The day's event was mainly for the audience. After saying a few words to the 3 male audience members, he gave them souvenirs and announced the end for the hurdles event. The second event was the high jump. But for this event, the contestants weren't jumping for height, but for speed. The goal was to reach the highest point as fast as possible. In the past years, the map was set on some sort of tall mountain peak. But this year, due to the projection technology, it was only a few platforms floating in the air. This was done for convenience. If they used some sort of tall mountain peak, then if the projection technology was used, it would be difficult for the audience to see every character. With floating platforms, every player could be easily seen. Next up is a pro player from Team Excellent Era. She's someone we all know and love, Su Mucheng. After the host announced it, the stadium's cheers and applause shook the heavens and the earth. For a beautiful female player like Su Mucheng, even enemy fans would find it hard to dislike her. It wouldn't be excessive to say that everyone liked her. Apart from the home team's players, any other pro or god would find it difficult to contest with the audience's applause for her. Su Mucheng. Su Mucheng, Chen Guo excitedly shouted. Yi Shu, on the other hand, felt somewhat uneasy. Su Mucheng hadn't gotten binoculars just to find him and wave at him, right? Right? She hadn't counted which seat he was in to call him up onto the stage, right? The occasional joke suited Su Mucheng's personality. But she knew that Yi Shu never showed himself to the public, so acting on her own and playing the joke out was somewhat headstrong. Yi Shu felt like it wasn't something Su Mucheng would do. "Mucheng, how do you plan on choosing the 4 audience members?" The host's tone was very excited. It was probably because of his previous experience with Jo Zekai. "Let's do it randomly for now," Su Mucheng said. "Okay, then we're going to show the numbers on the screen and it'll stop when you say stop," the host said, and the numbers began to roll. "Stop!" Su Mucheng's shout was almost faster than Jo Zekai's. The host almost slipped on the ground, causing the audience to laugh. After Chen Guo finished laughing, she took a look at the seat number chosen and felt very dejected when she saw that it wasn't hers. This time, her idol was on stage and Chen Guo wanted to go up very badly. The speechless host didn't want to tell Su Mucheng to slow down. He was afraid that she'd be like Jo Zekai. For the second roll, Su Mucheng did things normally and told him to stop after a while. "Ah, not me again." Disappointment was written all over Chen Guo's face. "Next up, I'm going to switch methods." Not waiting for the host to speak, Su Mucheng took the initiative to make a suggestion. "Oh, Mucheng, what's your new method?" the host excitedly asked. "Oh, I don't have a new one. Can I just randomly call out 2 seats?" Su Mucheng said. The host fell over again. Was Su Mucheng going to act like Jo Zekai? "I pick Area C," Su Mucheng said. "Ah!" Chen Guo cried out in surprise. She was sitting in Area C. Row 18. "Ah!" Chen Guo jumped up. She was in row 18. Number 21, Su Mucheng concluded. Chen Guo's brain immediately exploded. As if something had blown up, she asked Tang Ru in disbelief, what number? 21. That's you. Tang Ru was also happy for Chen Guo. No one knew better than her how much she liked Su Mucheng. Chen Guo's gaze was still somewhat blank. Except this time, when she looked around, everyone had their heads turned towards her, their gazes filled with envy and jealousy. It really is me. Chen Guo didn't know what to do. Su Mucheng continued, next up, I have an idea. I want to choose this friend's neighboring seats. I think it'll be very fun if we invite people who know each other to come up. Mucheng, that sounds like a great idea. Then which one are you going to pick? Number 19 or number 23, the host said. They were in an odd number only area. Number 19 was Yi Shu. Number 23 was Tang Ru. After hearing Su Mucheng's suggestion, Chen Guo shouted excitedly, ah! We can even go up together. Chapter 318, Meeting an Idol. She isn't actually going to make me go up, is she? Now that things had gotten this far, Yi Shu couldn't help but feel uncertain. And when he looked on stage, Su Mucheng was currently hesitating with her answer, number 19 or number 23, Su Mucheng mumbled. The surrounding audience members had all turned around to look at them. Their eyes were filled with envy. It didn't matter what her answer was, one of them would have the chance to go up. Right now, we only have these two choices. Do you want to flip a coin to decide it? The host suggested. No need. I've already thought of my answer, Su Mucheng said. Oh, then which one? The host asked. It's, Su Mucheng said and then paused with a deep breath. Yi Shu had figured it out. He was certain that Su Mucheng wouldn't pick him. The girl was just messing with him deliberately in order to scare him. Unfortunately, her little scheme had been seen through by Yi Shu and he wouldn't be fazed by it. Sure enough, after taking her deep breath, Su Mucheng chose number 23, Tang Ru's seat. Ah! It's you, Chen Guo was the first to shout. She was clearly more excited than the person who was chosen. Tang Ru had been at a loss before, but her mind was clear now. She laughed, it looks like my luck today is pretty good. Though it's too bad for a certain someone, Chen Guo laughed as she looked at Yi Shu. She patted Yi Shu's shoulder, sigh. You just barely missed it. Don't be too disappointed. But Yi Shu's face was as calm as ever. He didn't have any sort of envious or jealous expression like the other spectators did. In fact, he didn't seem disappointed at all. He looked as if everything was just as he had expected. Chen Guo suddenly remembered that even though she had never heard of his name before, he had been in the pro scene before. It seemed like going up on stage really wasn't that big of a deal for him. Chen Guo felt somewhat sorry that she wasn't able to use this opportunity to deal a blow to Yi Shu. The host had already called the two forward and the two handed their belongings to Yi Shu to take care of. Work hard and admire our heroics. Chen Guo handed her binoculars over to Yi Shu. Good luck getting closer to your idol, Yi Shu laughed. As if you need to say that, Chen Guo loftily turned around and walked towards the stage with Tang Ru. The final two guests have arrived on stage. Two very beautiful girls. Let's all get to know them. The host noticed that Chen Guo and Tang Ru were both very beautiful. It could be said that they weren't much inferior to Su Mucheng. Could I ask for your names? The host asked. Chen Guo. Tang Ru. The two replied. It seems like you two are like Mucheng wanted. Are you two together? The host asked. Yup, we're good friends, Chen Guo replied. You two were lucky enough to participate in today's event for the All-Star Weekend. What are your feelings about this? The host continued to ask. Of course, I'm very excited. The questions were pretty much all answered by Chen Guo. After Tang Ru said her name, she just stood on the side with a smile. Her gaze turned as she saw the all-star Su Mucheng, Chen Guo's favorite all-star, smiling at her. Their gazes met and Su Mucheng waved her hands back, smiling. Tang Ru was somewhat startled, but she quickly returned a friendly smile back. Of course it's Su Mucheng. At this moment, the host asked Chen Guo who her favorite player was, which Chen Guo replied quickly with Su Mucheng's name. The host immediately had Su Muqing come over and interact with her fan. Chen Guo didn't know whether she was dreaming or not, but everything seemed to go by too quickly as she was rushed over. When she got in front of Su Muqing, she became a lot more boastful. Hearing Chen Guo's gentle and low voice talking with Su Muqing was enough to make people familiar with her feel like it wasn't real. But the host couldn't only revolve around them. After all, the 3 other pro players and the other 2 guests were already on stage, as well. They couldn't be left feeling ignored. While the host interviewed the other participants, Su Muqing and Chen Guo were still chatting with each other. In truth, Chen Guo had no idea what she wanted to say to her idol, though Su Muqing took the initiative to chat with her about some of the fun things interesting to glory female players. Unfortunately, they didn't have much time to chat. After the host finished with the introductions, the match officially started and the 8 players went to their respective platforms. It was too short. This was Chen Guo's only regret. She really wanted to chat with Su Muqing more. Su Muqing was no longer that faraway idol that she could only see on the internet, but instead, she was like a good friend. She really wanted to get closer to her. Sadly, when the day was over, Chen Guo knew that she would never get another chance. In the end, Su Muqing was a celebrity-type figure and she was just a normal player. Reality was always like this. When Chen Guo walked up to her platform, she felt quite forced and looked back from time to time at the spot where she had chatted with Su Muqing. The event continued. After the 8 players went up onto their respective match platforms, they began to log in with their account cards. The host had obviously asked about their account's class and level. However, Tang Ru's Soft Mist wasn't even level 40 yet. If she played with the other max-level characters, then it wouldn't be fair at all, so the host proposed to give Tang Ru a level 70 Battle Mage account. Tang Ru didn't complain and gladly accepted it. The 8 players' characters were projected onto the stage. The electronic screens featured each character's perspective. But to everyone's surprise, when Chen Guo's Chasing Haze appeared on-screen, there was quite a bit of commotion among the audience. Chasing Haze? That Chasing Haze? After seeing that character appear, the audience members suddenly began to discuss with one another. Yeah, it's that one. I remember her equipment, some audience members affirmed. Chasing Haze was quite famous and her fame came from when Yishu used her to battle with Poplar Beach. Poplar Beach might not have been very well liked, but in the heavenly domain, he was certainly a famous expert. To be beaten so quickly in such a manner caused quite a bit of commotion in the gaming community. The recording for that match had been on the popular videos ranking list for a very long time. Whoever saw the video knew of Chasing Haze. During those initial days of popularity, Chen Guo constantly received friend requests every day. Her mailbox had received countless letters with all sorts of content in them. Chen Guo had been tossed from side to side so much that, in the end, she directly closed her ability to add friends and shut down her mailbox in order to go back to her peaceful days. And now, Chasing Haze had suddenly appeared at the All-Star Weekend event, which was quite surprising to the audience members. Chasing Haze was like a grassroots celebrity. Her fan base could be considered quite large. Her appearance on stage didn't lose to those 3 other pro players. As for the other guests, they were only given a polite applause. The hosts had no way of anticipating this. Quite a few people knew of her. If they had known that such a coincidence would occur, the hosts would have fully utilized it. But right now, the high jump event was about to begin. The map was projected onto the stage as the 8 characters lined up. The 8 characters all had their heads up, looking up at the steps floating in the air. It was the first time the high jump event was like this. The floating steps didn't have any mountain walls as obstacles, so there was much more freedom in the jumping and the competition would be more intense. The 8 players didn't have much time to look. After the 8 characters each got into their position, the match quickly began. Bang! A gun sounded and the match began. The pro players used their own methods to jump up. Su Muqing, as the all-star, didn't disgrace her status. She used her aerial cannon to jump up and rapidly ascended. After a few ups and downs, she pulled ahead of everyone. This high jump event clearly wasn't as simple as the hurdles. For that one, if you didn't know what you were doing, and you just ran straight forward, you would eventually reach the finish line. But for this high jump, if the players failed their play, they would fall down just as the Sin City clock tower. Of the 4 guests, 3 of them were doing quite well. Only one of them clearly wasn't good enough. After a few jumps, that player would always fall down. Like that, no one needed to work it out for him. He himself knew that he wouldn't be able to finish the match. As for the pros, they began to compete. Like the hurdles, the pros felt too bad for bullying the guests, so they fought amongst one another. And it was too easy to mess things up for others in this event. If a player was hit by a crowd control or knockback skill, then they would immediately have to start from the bottom again. Chapter 319, Harming Others for One's Personal Gain. The high jump event was much more difficult than the hurdles event. Even though the match was only for fun and winning or losing didn't matter, repeatedly failing to reach the floating steps was a bit embarrassing. The All-Star Weekend was being watched by numerous Glory fans and no pro player wanted to be remembered in this way. As a result, those who signed up for the high jump event all had real skill in this area. There were many areas a player could be strong at in Glory. Every pro player had particular skills or techniques they excelled at. If these pros who signed up for the high jump were evaluated based on their skill at jumping, then these pros would be among the top of all players. Su Mucheng jumped the quickest, but the other 3 weren't far behind. These 4 had strong fundamentals for jumping. They continued to steadily ascend as they fought with one another. Those who were hit down wouldn't fall to the very bottom. They would usually fall a bit and then think of a way to stop their descent at a chosen floating step. This type of difficult game immediately created a clear divide between the pros and the normal players. Tang Ru's mechanics were completely based around her hand speed. However, this type of jumping required the player to determine the distance, height, and jumping power. With only her hand speed, every time she jumped onto the next floating step, she had to stop and slowly think about how to jump onto the next one. Compared to her, Chen Guo was a bit faster at this. Another guest had pretty decent skill as well. But the remaining 4th guest was more miserable. Overall, he was very bad in this area and after a few jumps, without any interruptions, he would fail again and again. He immediately became the star of the show. Every time he fell to the bottom, the audience would laugh. Even the commentators were paying attention to him. In the beginning, they had been encouraging him, but towards the end, they were stumped for words. He simply wasn't good enough. It had nothing to do with how hard he was trying. Being laughed at for failing wasn't easy for this poor brother. Compared to the other 7 contestants, the 4 pros had already climbed so high that he couldn't see them anymore. As for the other 3 guests, even though they were way behind the pros, they were at least steadily climbing. Having seen the pros fight in the previous match, this brother suddenly felt inspired. He had become a joke, but he could at least drag others along with him. This guest just happened to be a sharpshooter, which was a long-range class. Thus, after jumping up a few times and feeling like he couldn't jump any higher, he took out his gun and fired at the other 3 guests. These 3 guests were completely focused on jumping up. Chen Guo and Tang Ru naturally wouldn't attack each other. As for the other guest, after seeing the pros so far ahead, he didn't feel like there was any point in attacking each other. If he made a mistake and accidentally fell down, then that would be very unfortunate, which was why he only thought of reaching the end floating step and nothing else. The 3 hadn't thought of doing anything bad to each other, but unfortunately, they had a poor crackpot beneath them. When the firing began, the 3 immediately panicked a bit. Compared to Su Mucheng and the other pros, their jumping skills were greatly inferior. Even under circumstances where there were no obstacles, they had to jump slowly and cautiously. With bullets flying towards them, danger sprang up all around them as they had to both jump and dodge at the same time. Using normal attacks wasn't enough for this guest. He fired the sharpshooter skill that Zhou Zikai had used in the hurdles, Thunder Snipe. The bullet flew up with a bang. The bullet headed towards Chen Guo's chasing haze. Chen Guo had played the game for many years and she knew of Thunder Snipe's power. But with her skill level, she wasn't able to determine where the bullet was being aimed at. Helpless, her only choice was to dodge. However, there wasn't much time to dodge, so she hastily chose to jump towards the next floating step. The bullet whistled by. It hadn't connected with chasing haze. But because Chen Guo had hurried the jump, chasing haze missed the floating step and fell. Chen Guo immediately fired her cannon in the air and wanted to use aerial cannon to land on another floating step. But with her skill, her mechanics weren't involved in this move at all, only luck. Unfortunately, her luck failed her. Chasing Haze had gotten to a few floating steps, but she wasn't able to steady herself on them and, in the end, she fell to the very bottom. Chen Guo was furious. If everyone had been fighting, then being blown down like this wasn't too bad. After all, that was a part of the game. But the player beneath them had already been seen by everyone as being inferior in skill. It wasn't possible for him to finish the game, and it could be said that he had already been eliminated from the competition. But this guy was hurting others for his own selfish reasons. He wasn't able to jump up, so he just had to cause trouble for others. It really was somewhat disgraceful. As soon as Chasing Haze got up after falling down, she directly fired a Gatling gun at the sharpshooter. As if he had found a new toy to play with, the sharpshooter excitedly began to fight with Chen Guo. Two guests fighting with each other on the ground was a first for this high jump event. The audience were at first in disbelief, but they quickly thought of Chasing Haze's exceptional skill displayed in the video and felt like the fight would be quite fun to watch. As soon as one person took the lead, the others began to clap and cheer. The sharpshooter had gotten the wrong idea and thought he was the one being cheered for. His anger was appeased and he immediately began fighting with more energy. On flat ground, the sharpshooter's skill wasn't as poor as his jumping ability. After the two attacked for a bit, it wasn't certain that Chen Guo would win. The audience watched for a bit, but didn't see the skill they were expecting out of Chasing Haze and all felt very disappointed. On that day, someone else had played on the Chasing Haze account. Quite a few players in the 10th server knew this, but this information wasn't given in the video, so players from other servers who had seen the video didn't know of this. On the ground, the two continued to fight intensely. Up above, the four pros were also fighting fiercely. In the middle, the two guests were the same as before. They didn't pay attention to each other and continued to jump. But Tang Ru's character stopped. After seeing that Chen Guo and the other guest were fighting evenly, without hesitating, she stepped off the floating platform and jumped down. The audience went into an uproar, but Tang Ru was very calm. She didn't feel fired up enough simply jumping up. But if it was PK, then she was quite confident in herself. The sharpshooter was still fighting with Chen Guo's Chasing Haze and didn't know that a disaster was coming from up above. The falling Tang Ru jabbed forward with her spear, causing the enthusiastic guest to stumble. Tang Ru's character didn't use any sort of stalling method and, after falling down from so high up, her health plummeted to half. Chasing Haze, on the other hand, had used aerial cannon to stall. Even though she hadn't landed steadily, she didn't take any damage from the fall. When the sharpshooter turned to look, he saw that Tang Ru's character was already at half-life from falling. He laughed out loud and believed her to be a noob. He knew that the person playing the character was a very pretty girl, so he teased her in a very casual manner. "Pretty girl, did that hurt? Would you like a hand?" The second day's events were interactive, so they didn't prohibit voice chat like in the official matches. Players could freely communicate through their voice. When a character fell from high up, besides losing health, the character would also be briefly stunned. This was something Tang Ru didn't know. She had been prepared to follow up, but then she discovered that she couldn't move because of her stunned state. This would have given the opponent a good chance to attack, but the guy had decided not to and instead chosen to tease her. After he finished talking, the stunned state wore off. Tang Ru immediately had her character use a dragon tooth. This max-level battle mage had a complete set of skills, but because Tang Ru was only familiar with skills below level 40, she didn't use the high-leveled skills. When she added in points, she maxed all of the skills she was familiar with and then randomly put in points in other skills. Tang Ru was very serious for this battle, so she didn't want to test out any high-level skills and only used familiar ones. In terms of PK, Tang Ru was far above normal players. The sharpshooter was completely crushed. He didn't have any ability to keep up and tease the girl at the same time. On the other side, Chen Guo's Chasing Haze had rushed over and didn't hesitate to fight with Tang Ru in a 2v1. This brother's situation wasn't looking good. The commentators were somewhat unable to keep up. After a short pause, one of them said, "If I'm not looking at things wrong, then these two girls have formed a team." At the same time, the audience members weren't the only ones astonished. Even the spectators in the pro player seats were watching seriously. "That battle mage seems to be pretty good," someone said. "Her hand speed is very fast." The pro-level players were instantly able to recognize what Tang Ru's strongest point was. "Sigh, but she's not experienced enough. Why didn't she use a Raging Dragon there?" Another sighed. Raging Dragon Pierces the Heart was a level 60 battle mage skill. It was a skill that currently wasn't in Tang Ru's train of thought. Chapter 320, Helping Each Other. The poor sharpshooter wanted to show off his might in front of the beauties, but his efforts only resulted in being flattened by them. After hearing the commentator say that the two of them had even partied up, he refused to give up and, as he climbed back up, he shouted, "How shameless! You even partied up?" The crowd laughed. The commentators had even checked the rules and explained, the rules never talked about this. But since it doesn't talk about it, that means it should be okay? Everyone watching could see the scene very clearly. No one sympathized with him. They all watched in glee as he was crushed by the two beauties and applauded repeatedly. However, the broadcasting team wasn't really sure what to do. The spectators in the stadium had more freedom and had a full view of the match. They could choose where they wanted to watch. The broadcasting team, though, could only show a single point of view. From the audience's reactions, it was clear that everyone was watching this battle. But all in all, this was the high jump event. Should they broadcast the fights between the pros or show the random fighting between the three normal players? Seeing that he was unable to beat Chen Guo and Tang Ru, the sharpshooter chose to run. Tang Ru wasn't a person who liked to give up and Chen Guo was already furious at him. The two didn't stop to rest and chased after him. The three, one in front and two behind, headed straight for the edge of the map. Quite a few of the audience members stood up, wanting to see what was happening at the border. Would they go off the map and into the stadium's seats? In the end, just as that sharpshooter was about to run off the edge, he suddenly switched directions and followed along the borders of the map. The audience booed, but after a short moment, the audience went silent again. This was because they could see from the screens that it wasn't possible to run past the edges of the map. The audience couldn't see the edges of the map from the projection, but the screens gave the players perspectives. The map actually did have borders. After hitting a wall, what else could he do but turn? But how long could he run for? Chen Guo and Tang Ru split apart until they finally trapped him. With a wolf at the front and a tiger at the back, the player had nowhere left to run and was killed. The stadium went into an applause. Tang Ru and Chen Guo's characters heroically returned to jumping up the floating steps. In the first event, the audience witnessed the great gunner, Zhou Zekai's, elegance. In the second event, the audience witnessed a farce brought to them by the normal players. The atmosphere was lively and even those at the pro player seats were talking amongst each other more. What do you think? Players in all of the teams were asking this question. The person they were paying attention to was, of course, Tang Ru. Her hand speed is quite good, they all said. Though there's something that's really weird, a battle mage said. I watched closely the entire time, but I didn't see her use any skills above level 40. No matter how good the opportunity was, she never used them. Maybe she thinks that there's no need to use such powerful skills against her opponent? Maybe the difference in skill was just that wide. While the spectators discussed amongst themselves, Chen Guo and Tang Ru continued to jump. As of now, Su Mucheng and the other pros were almost at the finish line. The other guest had already gone past the halfway point, as well. Chen Guo and Tang Ru were now starting at the bottom again. But after providing them with such a fun show, the people in the audience were very supportive of them and constantly shouted words of encouragement. After a few minutes, the four pros reached the top, one after the other. Su Mucheng kept her initial lead and won first place. The others followed soon after, though they knew that this time, the match wasn't focused on them, but rather upon the two beauties who weren't even a quarter of the way up yet. The four pros stood at the top platform and looked down. Chen Guo and Tang Ru weren't making a fool of themselves and jumped up step by step. Even though they weren't nearly as nimble as the pros, they hadn't made any mistakes yet. Go. We're almost there. The two girls encouraged each other. They looked up and saw that the other guest had reached the top as well. They were the only two left. Go, go! The audience cheered. Oh, no, an audience member suddenly cried. He saw Chen Guo make a mistake. Chasing Haze didn't jump high enough and missed the floating step. Tang Ru's battle mage leapt up and sent a sky strike at Chasing Haze. Chasing Haze was launched up and, as she fell, she landed on the floating step that she had previously missed. Little Tang, Chen Guo shouted and hastily turned her camera to look. Tang Ru's battle mage was standing on floating step 2 levels behind. I'm fine, Tang Ru laughed. It was also an attack, but it had been done between two friends to help each other. Compared to those attacks by the sharpshooter trying to undermine everyone else, this scene moved many among the audience. Even those standing at the finish line had their characters make an applauding motion. Chen Guo's Chasing Haze stood up from the floating step and didn't hurry to jump to the next one. She waited until Tang Ru's battle mage reached the same height and continued on together. After this, their jumping went smoothly and the two reached the finish line under the audience's cheers and shouts. The host went along and pushed forward to reach a greater climax. The 7 characters standing at the top waved their hands at the audience and then faded away. At the match platforms, the players walked down. Congratulations for your victory, Su Mucheng. Is there anything that you'd like to say? Under normal circumstances, the champion would be the last to be interviewed by the host. But this time, the host switched the order. The first to be asked was the champion, Su Mucheng. I'm very happy. But I'm even more happy that I was able to see such a beautiful scene in this event. I remember someone often said that glory has never been a game played alone. I really like this saying. And they perfectly showed this. I'm very moved, Su Mucheng said. Was this what you wanted to see when you picked the two of them? The host said. Yes. I thank them for their outstanding performance, Su Mucheng smiled. The audience applauded wildly. The host walked over to Chen Guo and Tang Ru. The two of them had become this event's lead characters. Congratulations you two, the host said. From the audience's applause, we know that not only Su Mucheng, but the entire audience was very moved by you two. Are you two happy? Of course, Chen Guo really wanted to say that this was a stupid question, but in front of the cameras, she resisted. The display of friendship you two showed to everyone was very moving. Can I ask how long you two have known each other? The host asked. 2 years, Chen Guo continued to be in charge of replying, while Tang Ru stayed to the side, smiling. 2 years. 2 years couldn't be considered as just having met, but they couldn't be considered old friends, either. The host wasn't sure what to say. After a short pause, he quickly followed, I can see that the two of you have a very strong relationship with each other. Did you two meet through glory? No, Chen Guo replied honestly, though her answer didn't really fit in with the situation. Oh, then do you two must play a lot of glory together now, right? The host asked. In the future, Chen Guo said. In the future? Why not before? The host asked curiously. Because she only started playing glory not too long ago, Chen Guo looked to Tang Ru. This time, the biggest uproar came from the pro players' seats. This beauty, who had caught their attention, had unexpectedly only recently started playing. Her previous performance meant something completely different now. Not too long ago? How long? The host asked the question the pros were hoping to know. About a month, Chen Guo said. A month? Are you saying that before that, she had never touched glory? The host asked curiously. Just a tiny bit, Tang Ru said. How much is a tiny bit? The host asked again. I sometimes helped her with a few matches in the arena, Tang Ru said. She even helped me finish the Heavenly Domain Challenge, Chen Guo added. The audience went into an uproar. For someone who barely touched glory to have beaten the Heavenly Domain Challenge. And then after seeing her previous playing, how was that someone who had only played for a month? Of the countless players, how many of them could play like that? The pros all looked at one another. Heavenly Domain Challenge? It wasn't anything difficult in their eyes. But with this, they had a better understanding of Tang Ru's skill and knew what having such skill with only 1 month of playing meant. Before this, the pro player's evaluation was only an, "Oh, she's not bad," but after knowing that she was just a beginner who had only played for a month, now that was frightening.